Welcome back to Started from the Bottom. I am your host, Susan Peterson. Today, I have Josh Red in studio. Josh is the founder of RedRiver Health and Wellness, one of the largest functional medicine clinics in the United States with 8 practices in Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, and Idaho. RedRiver treats patients from around the world who suffer from challenging thyroid disorders, Hashimoto's disease, and other autoimmune conditions. Dr. Red is an Amazon #1 best-selling author and a published research biologist. He lives with his wife and 5 children in Utah. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you came.
This is so great.
Josh, how did you get started?
That's a great question. Originally, I had some medical issues that I was dealing with as a kid, and conventional doctors could never help. And so I ended up going to a chiropractor, and they helped tremendously. They helped through my sports, through all my physical ailments and everything. And at a young age, I just realized when it comes to chronic disease, the conventional model of care is kind of a failing model of care, unfortunately. Like the idea of a pill for a symptom just didn't sit right with me, right? For example, I remember thinking, even when I was 12, 13, if someone really comes into a doctor's office and they have high cholesterol and we just give them cholesterol medication without addressing the underlying mechanism driving it, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? So at a young age, I've always been interested in health, but I didn't want to go down a path where we're just treating symptoms with pills and not addressing the underlying mechanism. And so with that, I tried to decide, should I go to medical school or what school should I go to? And I realized medical school, they don't really teach anything about nutrition. And that was kind of a love of mine. And so I ended up going to chiropractic school, and they teach a lot more about nutrition. I didn't go to school to adjust people, though. I went to school to do what's called functional medicine, which a medical doctor, a chiropractor, a DO, nurse practitioner can specialize in. And it's more about doing the medical tests and do the digging to identify these people's underlying imbalances to whatever they're suffering with. And so I went to school, I learned the nutrition component, learned how to adjust, even though that's not what I do. And then I graduated and opened up my first clinic. And that was, the rest of it is history, really.
What year was that?
2010. So we have been open for 12 years now. I remember we opened up our first clinic. It cost us $25,000 that we didn't have.
You know what? Every entrepreneur has a story about money they didn't have.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we moved from our home into like this little tiny apartment. And we're like, all right, we're doing it. If we don't make money the first month, like we're going bankrupt, right? Or whatever that may be. And fortunately, it just took off from that point on, which is really great. But health has always been on my mind. I love business. Business has always been on my mind. I do a lot of real estate and land development and other stuff as well. But Red River is a lot more meaningful and impactful, obviously. I remember one of my very first patients, I graduated and I went in to start this business, not really knowing what in the heck I was even doing. And I walked into the room, and the husband, it's a husband and wife, and the husband says, look, if you don't help my wife, she's going to kill herself. I was like, what the heck? And here I'm like in my pubescent years, I don't even have to shave. I'm like really fresh out of the gates. But this patient had gone to a number of different doctors. No one could help her. She ended up having other autoimmune conditions, and she was doing all the things that she knew were healthy, but she just could not function, and she was at her wit's end. She wasn't sleeping well. And then almost the same day, I walked into another patient, and the patient says, she had other issues and problems. She'd been to a number of different doctors, and her son was asked to draw a picture of her at school, and he drew a picture of her in bed. And when he brought that home to her, she pulled that out of his backpack, and I was like, what's this, honey? And he's like, that's you, Mom, because you're always in bed. And her heart just shattered. And so back-to-back patients, seeing what they went through, seeing the issues that they struggled with, and seeing really the gaslighting that took place in their life, they all thought they were hopeless. They thought they were crazy or lazy or whatever that may be. But within about 30 days, they started to make some substantial changes. And at that time, I didn't really know that what I was doing would really even work. I know that sounds weird, but I didn't know the impact that we could have. And within about 30 days, they started to improve. And then within 60 days, they got even better. And their quality of life just exploded. They felt better than they had in 20 years. And at that moment, that's when I realized we have some pretty powerful things at our fingertips. And if we keep pushing forward, keep grinding, keep studying, keep learning, keep growing, we're going to create a pretty powerful thing here.
Did you start out intentionally specializing in autoimmune, or did that like kind of become like you just started noticing that's what people were struggling with?
Yeah, initially I started with like diabetes, just because that was a really easy thing, right? A lot of these individuals that are diabetic, or type 2 diabetics specifically, you can make some easy changes and their quality of life is much better, their blood sugar levels drop. But once I started to help like my first Hashimoto's or autoimmune patient, I realized like that group of individuals is completely neglected. Like, nobody's helping them.
And they're late stage diagnosis usually. Usually
For sure.
It's like not happening until stuff is popping
way
up.
later.
Yeah.
They'll have a number of different symptoms, and a lot of doctors just don't know how to actually test for that autoimmune condition. They don't really know how to do the right tests. And so these patients kind of go from doctor to doctor, being neglected, being told that they don't know what's wrong. Sometimes some of the doctors, unfortunately, because they don't know what's going on and they don't know how to treat the patient, they end up turning it back on the patient and tell them that either they're lazy or crazy or whatever it may be. It's a very frustrating, group to be in.
Yeah.
And so for me, at a young age, once I started to help those two moms and I saw those changes, I went from, the diabetes thing to just all autoimmune, all thyroid, all, chronic conditions like that. So.
And you've also continued your education beyond, like, what else have you done?
Yeah, so after chiropractic school, I did a master's in human nutrition and functional medicine. And then after that, I did a master's in public health biology at Johns Hopkins, which was the hardest thing I've ever done. And then as I was finishing my thesis, I had this impression, literally 4 a.m., I need to go to naturopathic medical school, which is really funny. But I ended up doing that and ended up flying to Chicago they ended up accepting a lot of my credits from Johns Hopkins, which was great because I was already there for 2.5, 3 years. And then able to do a 4-year program in 2 years. And so I ended up flying to Chicago every week for 2 years to finish that, and just graduated, and now we'll soon start a residency in regenerative medicine and stem cell therapy, which is really cool.
In Utah?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So you're going to lose your platinum status or your diamond status?
My diamond status is slowly going to dwindle for sure. You betcha.
You're going to miss those upgrades, I bet.
You betcha. But in reality, though, it's kind of funny. I always want to make sure that I'm not staying stagnant. Yeah. Right? And no matter what business you do.
Does that come from wanting to help people, or is that just like a drive within you?
A little bit of both. It's kind of an ironic thing. When I first got started, like what we do now is really cool. Functional medicine, post-pandemic, like a lot of people think we're awesome, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a good time to start.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
Half the population hated me.
Also, I feel like the spiritual movement around like really tuning into your body, it's just like become such a big part of our culture that it just makes sense what you guys are doing.
Right now, it's fantastic. 12 years ago, half the population literally hated me.
Right. And you'd have to like really explain to people you weren't witches, right?
We're not snake oil salesmen. We're not quacks. We're like, I got banned from TV stations here in Utah because I said diet, lifestyle, and nutrition plays a role in your health. Oh. Doctors would constantly complain to the board to investigate me. I mean, they would call me the worst things that you could ever imagine. They would threaten me. So 12 years ago, I was like scared out of my mind that Red River would eventually get shut down because of all the pushback. Now we've created a lot of relationships. We've developed a lot of great relationships with Doppel and with other medical doctors and the conventional doctors. And we've really tried to bridge that gap where we understand our role, they understand their role, but together with the patient's health in mind and really at the forefront of our minds, we can make a lot of awesome changes together. So I don't know. One thing is we deal with so many sick patients that nobody can help. And so I'm always trying to like learn and grow so that I can be the best doctor there is out there, right? And at the same time, I know that if I continue my education, then, it's going to help me from a RedRiver perspective as well. So naturopathic doctors here in Utah have a really big scope of practice, similar to medical doctors, and we can prescribe medications. We can do all that stuff as well. So part of that was like, I could really do a lot of really cool things on top of what we're doing with RedRiver. And stem cells, I've always been really interested in stem cell therapy. At Johns Hopkins, we could sever a mouse's spine, and it could be completely quadriplegic, and we could inject stem cells, and it could fully walk again.
Oh my gosh.
So like the advancements of stem cells, it's going to change the way we treat chronic conditions. It's going to change the whole healthcare system here shortly, and every year it's just getting better and better. So for me, it's just more about not staying stagnant and staying ahead of the curve and doing all that I can to make sure that I'm literally the best doctor there is. A lot of people, when it comes to business in general, if you stay stagnant, like you're going backwards.
Yeah, especially now. I mean, ChatGPT launched in December, like November 30th, so essentially December 1st. And they're going to have, what was it, Abby? Was it 1 billion users by the end of March? And it's like, that's a seventh of the world population.
Yeah.
And it's not available in China. So like, things are moving at a rapid speed. And so I agree totally. Like if you're not staying on top of stuff, you are going to slide backwards for sure.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've always been solution oriented in your life?
I feel like I have. There's things that I care about, which I want to achieve and make it happen and do all that I can to be the best at. There's things that I don't care about that I probably not, right? There's things that I depend on my wife and her strengths and my family or those that I look up to or those that influence me that, but yeah, I do.
Do you feel like you, because just listening to you talk about growing up and the things that you're thinking about at a young age, which I didn't think about at that age, but just feel like, do you, and maybe I'm making an assumption and please correct me if you think I'm wrong, but you don't have a lot of tolerance for people who are not looking to like better themselves. Maybe not people, but like situations. Yeah.
At a young age, I always thought in more depth. I'm within my head probably more than I should be. And learning how to navigate that in of itself is I'm still learning today, right? But, I wouldn't say that I don't have tolerance, but I love helping people learn how to become solution oriented. I love helping people learn how to set goals and how to achieve things that they didn't think they could achieve otherwise. And that could be with youth. Could be with my doctors at RedRiver. That could be with our employees or staff or just friends and family, right? I think we're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. A lot of times, maybe fear, a lack of self-worth, whatever that may hold us back from being successful at whatever we do. But helping others gain confidence, gain certainty, that's fun for me. I love that. Like even at RedRiver, I love helping patients. It's the most rewarding job on the planet. There's no questions about it. And even for me, I don't really see it as like a business anymore. It's like more of a service than anything, right? But to see maybe a doctor come in and work with RedRiver and us be able to help him learn how to lead, help him in other areas of his life, not just being a doctor, help him be successful and help him, get to the point where he can lead others. Like that's gold. I love that for sure.
Yeah. So let's jump into how I met you, if you're cool.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. I told them we could share. So everyone who's listening is signing a HIPAA for me right now.
That's right. That's right. And I'm not going to start that conversation, but I will definitely
I'll lead
continue
out.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I had what I know it's not a medical term, but it was a full mental breakdown where my mental health was at crisis level, and I was going to my doctor and I was doing all the things, but I was just not getting better in a fast way. I had started on, I believe when I had talked to you, I had just started on Zoloft. But when you're at crisis level and you get on an SSRI, it's actually scary for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It was the darkest time of my life.
I could imagine.
And so my friend connected me with you, and I just kind of told you what was happening. And then you got me in to see Dr. Stadler. And
when you say, let's go back just a minute. When you say you're in this crisis mode, for listeners and viewers, like symptomatically, what did that feel like?
So
I mean, what was your life like? Paint a picture for us.
Yeah, so I was sleeping maybe 3 or 4 hours a night, but it was not consecutive. It was like a half hour and then wake up with just racing heart. And so number one, I wasn't sleeping, which just starts to really mess with your hold on reality. And then all day long, I was constantly having panic attacks unless I was taking Xanax, and I don't love to take it. I feel like it messes with me. And I was at a point where I was afraid I was going to get addicted to the little half of a milligram of Xanax. So I was just not thinking rational thoughts. The panic attacks were making me think things irrationally. And then even when sometimes when you have irrational thoughts, you say them out loud and you're like, oh, okay, that's irrational. And I couldn't tell the difference between rational and irrational anymore. And physically, I was in pain. And so it was starting to really weigh on me to the point where I've never been, and maybe trigger warning here, I'm going to talk about suicide. I've never been suicidal before, but between the pain of just my own thoughts and my body and not sleeping, I was in a place where I was ideating around suicide.
Yeah.
And it was not, it was not fun. And so I called you and I told you all those symptoms. You're like, let's get you in. And had to do 9,000 blood panels. How many? You take so much blood.
Or OCD. We don't want to miss anything.
Yeah. And then went in and talked to Stadler. We thought maybe it was an autoimmune initially. That's why I went to you. Mm-hmm. And I don't have an autoimmune, but it was like, talking to either Dr. Red or Dr. Stadler is like, when you're like, you feel smarter. I felt smarter when I talked to him, and he's telling me all these things about my T3s and my T4s. And I'm like, got it. And then I leave. My mom's like, what do you say? And I'm like, I have no idea. So we could probably pull up my blood, but essentially like I'd been in fight or flight for so long that my body just shut down.
Yeah. What do you think triggered it?
I know what triggered it. It was, traumatic events that had happened in my life that caused me to be constantly for 3 years solving solutions around my family's safety and my business's safety, and not addressing anything because I just honestly couldn't let my guard down.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, not taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And I was also in a position where I don't think I could have taken care of myself at that time. Mm-hmm. So I was white knuckling through everything. And finally I was safe and my body's like, cool. So we need some help. Yeah.
Yeah. You would be shocked to realize your story is really common. If you could sit in our office and hear the patient's history and their story, it's very similar. It's very frightening, very frustrating, you name it. It's really interesting, though, because what happened with you is that you have this fight or flight breakdown. You have what's called adrenal glands. They produce cortisol, which is your stress hormone. If you're in this like constant fight or flight mode, trauma is a huge trigger for this. But if you're in a constant fight or flight mode, your adrenal glands have to pump full steam ahead. They're going to have to produce more stress hormone than they're used to producing. And in order to do that, they steal away your reproductive hormones to convert them into cortisol. They end up taxing your blood sugar levels, so then that creates issues. And then it ends up causing a lot of problems with the brain and neurological tissue. So the cerebellum is a really common organ, part of the brain that will basically gate what goes into the brain. If it can't gate things properly, which a severe adrenal dysfunction will cause, if it can't gate things properly, then you just have all this output into the brain and you can't shut it down. So if we did like imaging on your brain while you're sleeping, I literally bet it was on fire. your brain's just going 100 miles an hour and you don't know how to shut it down. And then blood sugar imbalances flare it up even more. And then more stress flares it up even more. And then more foods. With all this stuff, then your gut starts to break down and you start to absorb certain proteins in the bloodstream that you shouldn't. And then that exacerbates it anymore. It's like a vicious cycle that just gets worse and worse and worse. And then because of all the stress, then it causes your T4, which you mentioned, which is a thyroid hormone. It causes that to not turn into T3, which is your active thyroid hormone.
This is sounding familiar.
Yeah, yes. So then you end up having like all these thyroid symptoms, even though you don't have a thyroid problem, and it ends up being just a complete cluster of imbalances that feed off of each other. And then here you are about to have a nervous breakdown, and you don't know what in the heck to do. And this is our common patient, where it's okay, you're in the right hands. Let's break it down. Let's see what's going on from a physiological perspective, a neurological perspective, but then also diet, lifestyle, and nutrition, right?
Yeah, so that's what I started addressing with Paul. I like to call him Paul.
Yeah, love Paul.
We love Paul. And the thing that I loved first actually was I was like, oh, I just started Zoloft, and he's like, great. So it wasn't like you either choose traditional medicine or you choose us. It was like, good, we're going to work with that, and how do you feel?
Yeah.
And that was really comforting to me, because if you're at crisis level and then to start, I never, there's so much stigma around an SSRI, but the reality is some people need them.
Especially if you're not sleeping.
Yes. And to not feel any shame coming from you guys on that was really, really helpful right off the bat. And then we started on an anti-inflammatory diet, which was just terrible. I hated it.
Yeah, it can be challenging, but you think about us in America, 60% of what we eat is ultra processed. It's filled with complete garbage. Our immune systems now are finally holding their hands up, being like, what in the heck are you doing? Why are you feeding us this, right? Yeah. It would be like us trying to fill up a car with like a gasoline car with diesel and then wondering why our car's not functioning well. Yeah. It's no different with what you're doing, right? So part of the baseline is we like our patients just to get to a baseline where they're actually eating real food. Like, hey, this is a vegetable. And you, because of your stress and trauma and how busy you probably were going long times without eating. Yeah. And then that creates even more problems with sleep. So to give you an idea too, just getting you down to where, hey, let's eat really frequently. Let's
Every
stabilize
2 hours.
blood sugar levels.
Yes.
Let's have you avoid inflammatory foods. You're eating real foods with high density of nutrients.
So I know people are listening like, okay, what's the anti-inflammatory diet? I'm going to tell you. It's not terrible. I love accountability. So this was actually, I push back on Paul a lot because he's fun to mess with.
He deserves it.
Yeah. But so essentially you're only eating chicken, turkey, lamb. That's it for meat.
Meat-wise, yep.
Starting with.
Fish.
Oh, yeah, fish. Yeah, you do fish, but no shellfish.
Yep.
Not yet. No nuts. For me, it was
no nuts for you.
No nuts.
That's
oh
worse.
no, I could have cashews. Actually,
okay. Some people can have nuts.
Yeah, cashews. I could have all of my veggies except for no potatoes.
White potatoes. You have sweet potatoes.
Yeah,
you have sweet potatoes?
I could have sweet potatoes, and then the only oil I could do was olive oil at first, and you do that for like 2 weeks, but then I didn't get my blood taken, so I had to do it for another week and a half.
Nice.
So I did that for 3.5 weeks. And the hardest part actually is not the food, because the food, you feel like crap at first. Are you detoxing? Is that too simple of a word to say?
For sure. You're going through withdrawal symptoms just like you would with an opioid addiction. There's no difference about it, right? With blood sugar levels and sugar in general, they trigger a part of our brain that produces opioids. So sometimes just you detoxing, you stabilizing blood sugar levels, your body trying to figure out what are you doing, why are you actually putting us into this response, why are you not feeding us with the sugar, that can create 7 to 10 days of some discomfort and challenges for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing I love about Red River is Paul was really like, you don't just take supplements because someone on social media is like, here's a supplement you should take. Yep. Like your supplements you should actually look at them as like prescriptions that should go along with your blood work.
For sure. Some of our worst patients are the ones that come in with a bag full of supplements and they have like rotator cuff tears because they're carrying their supplements everywhere they go.
Yeah.
Those are some of our worst patients because there's there's nutrients and supplements in there that could actually be more hazardous than good. And so we want to make sure we rule out every variable possible and make sure that you're taking the best form of whatever nutrition you need to take.
Right. And I loved that it was based on my blood. So we've gone up or down on supplements or taken some in or taken them out.
And I think that's the important part too. Most people don't realize, but we do the food intolerance test. We see what foods might trigger or exacerbate it. We'll have you do a specific anti-inflammatory diet for you as an individual. Your start might be a little bit different than the next patient's start, but what foods that trigger you might not trigger the next patient.
Yeah.
What imbalances that you have, the next patient might not have.
Yeah, it's very customized, which I really appreciated. And then after 3.5 weeks, I was like, he's like, you ready for your food sensitivity? And I'm like, yes, I've just been dreaming about eggs. And he's like, you can't have eggs. I was like, oh, man. But I got to the point where I could. That's the thing is like, it wasn't forever.
For sure. And I think that's where, from a patient standpoint, it seems like everything's diet.
Yeah.
For us, really diet's only about 20% of what we do. Our whole goal is to identify any possible imbalance that we can and then work to improve it one by one as best we can, and then teach you how to maintain it, keep you how to keep it in check. Most of the time, if a patient's really wound up and they have a lot of inflammation, a lot of different issues, they're going to be intolerant to a huge list of foods. Once you can improve oral tolerance, you improve the intestinal lining, you improve how the liver functions, you improve inflammation overall, they can add in a ton of foods and their body's a lot more resilient and a lot more adaptive. Their adaptability is a lot higher, basically.
I can remember 3 months in, that's when, because I think I started going to you guys in October. By January, and Christmas was not a problem. I mean, really, when I looked at it, like from when I stepped back, I'm like, what am I actually missing out on? Like a couple dry cookies. Like it wasn't an issue for me.
Yeah.
By January, I had not felt that good since my 20s.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Just from diet and supplement
and the nutrition and
alone.
Yeah.
And also prioritizing rest and being on the Zoloft and like getting my 8 hours of sleep and my water and all that stuff. Yeah.
There's a whole different area where it's just like teaching people how to properly live so they can be healthy, right? Our environment plays a huge role. Our lifestyle plays a huge role. How we process emotions plays a huge role. How we process stress. There's so many different things, but the biggest goal for us is we want to teach you so that you can be the expert in your health and you know how to manage things long term. And that's one thing too. Earlier we got a lot of pushback from conventional doctors and just people in general. But now we have these relationships where like, no, we're your greatest like asset here. We're going to refer our patients to you a ton because they do need medication changes. We do believe that what you're doing is great. We just want to work on the underlying inflammatory issues and balances in diet and lifestyle and nutrition, which isn't being addressed. And so together with your Zoloft, with all your things that you needed to do in order to get functioning better, that's just what needs to happen. And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Especially when we have someone like you that's not sleeping well and has this stress response, this crazy high. Medications can be important and can be utilized for really good things when they're prescribed correctly.
Yeah. So.
Well, we'll see you. Take care. All right. See you guys.
No, not at all, Josh.
That's a pretty good podcast already. I wasn't expecting any of those questions, so that's great.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting you to come out and share your story. That's awesome.
I've touched about it a lot on this podcast, actually. I think it's important that entrepreneurs talk about their mental health. I think especially female entrepreneurs and mothers, like I feel like it's really important that we talk about mental health. I think it's such a huge part of everything right now.
Yeah.
And
people don't typically like to talk about it. We see as doctors with the type of patients we see, it's a huge, huge problem right now, right? Nobody likes to talk about it, but I think it's important that you come out and share and you let people know, especially as an entrepreneur, as someone who's trying to run their own business. If they're not right physically, that will completely stop them in their tracks. That will minimize any goals that they have. And so making sure that you do all that you can from a physical standpoint to make sure that you're healthy. That's really important, right?
Yeah, and I feel like, I think you said it earlier, what you guys actually did was give me the reins to my own health. So like right now, I was texting Paul the other day because I had a sinus infection, had to start an antibiotic. I hate going on antibiotics. I waited as long as I could so I didn't have to do it. But now I'm like, okay, I'm eating my kefir every day. I know what I got to do. And then probably when I'm done with the antibiotic, I'm going to do a 2-week, like just like anti-inflammatory reset just to get my gut right where I need to be. Yep. And like that's me. I'll probably tell Paul so he can be like, good job, Susan. But I don't need him to tell me to do that. I understand where I'm at, and I can tell the difference when I feel bad. I was talking to my producer, Abby, a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, yeah, I need to eat more veggies. I had told her that. And I've been on the go a lot, been doing a lot of stuff, been relying a lot on Chomps and an apple, and like Chomps and a bag of broccoli doesn't hit the same.
Nope.
But I know I'm missing out on my leafy greens right now. And so I've gotten to the point where my body's giving me cues of what I need, but I really learned it from those weekly sessions with Stadler and like making sure that I was following the protocol right.
That's so great. And I think one of the biggest goals for us too is just helping the patient be sensitive to how they feel.
Yeah.
And understanding what symptoms are good, what symptoms are bad, what adjustments need to be made when they have specific symptoms. Those are really important too, because let's say when they're 70 years old and someone dies in the family, like you're not gonna be able to control that stress response, right?
Plus you're probably gonna be eating like a lot of on the go stuff and like things are gonna fall by the wayside for a little bit.
For sure. So it's us being like, hey, look, even in 20 years from now, how can you manage things a lot more effectively? Whatever that may be, right?
Yeah. Okay.
The mental health capacity or the mental health topic is really important, though, and I think we need to address it.
I bet you guys are getting that as much as you're getting autoimmune right now, right?
Well, the problem, too, is that physiologically, just when we live inflammatory lifestyles, like our brain's inflamed.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that can drive mental health type symptoms.
What does that feel like when you say your brain's inflamed? I knew how mine felt, but like if someone's listening to this and they're like, I just feel like crap all the time. What are the symptoms they need to be looking for if your brain's inflamed?
One of the most common symptoms will be depression and fatigue.
And brain fog.
Brain fog, really common. Headaches.
Also, the first 2 weeks of the anti-inflammatory, you're so dumb. You can't think of a word to save your life.
Your brain's starving for glucose because it's not used to that high ultra-processed food that you're eating, right?
Yeah. It's like, where's my my Kraft mac and cheese?
But in adults, though, brain fog, decreased clarity, forgetfulness, insomnia, anxiety, those are common just brain-based symptoms from brain inflammation. When you have brain inflammation, too, it's kind of like when you sprain your ankle and you get the inflammation in the ankle. That same process can literally occur in the brain, and it's pretty scary because our brain doesn't have pain receptors. So, like, we don't know if our brain's inflamed or not. But what will happen is that you'll have neurotransmitters that will be in shambles. So neurotransmitters don't fire properly, neurons don't fire properly. Our conductive speed just slows down from a brain perspective, and this creates tons of issues from a mental health standpoint.
So it's not going to be a headache when your brain's inflamed. Sometimes,
not
but
necessarily.
Not always.
Sometimes, but not always. The most common one, like I said, was depression and fatigue. Brain fog is a really common one too. But when neurons don't fire properly, neurotransmitters become diminished because of the brain inflammation. That's when things get really, really scary. And just like you experience, that's when you don't gate things properly, you don't rationale things properly. It can become really scary. What's even scarier is like as adults, we can kind of gate this and understand this and know, this could actually be due to an inflammatory response or a physiological response, not necessarily just my brain, right? There's always trauma, stress, and other things that need to obviously be addressed in conjunction with this stuff. But it's usually not just one thing that triggers it. It's usually a variety of imbalances and problems that are making this big problematic thing in our life, right? What's scary, though, is this in kids because it's exploding like crazy. And so we see kids, they have literally cereal or pancakes for breakfast. They have chicken nuggets and dairy for lunch. Who knows what they're having in between meals? Probably
Fruit snacks.
Fruit snacks laced with dyes and artificial
But
sweeteners.
have you
with
had
high
a bag of
fructose.
fruit snacks? They slap.
Yes. We do organic fruit snacks now where it's
Okay.
like a real mango.
Got it.
And we love those. It's doesn't have dyes in it, doesn't have high fructose corn syrup. It's
Right.
basically just not crack for children, right?
Right.
But you see these kids where they're eating garbage always. And then we wonder why they're not functioning well in school. We wonder why they have ADD. We wonder why they're not functioning well, why they're not sleeping well, why they're misbehaving, why they're not developing properly, why they're having all these behavioral type issues. And their brain is literally on fire and nobody is doing anything about it. And they're eating literal garbage. Like they're eating the same nutrient count as this carpet basically and trying to survive. And their immune system and their brain and their bodies wondering what the heck's going on. Kids right now are faced with a whole new number of health challenges than ever before. We have these ultra-processed foods slattered with glyphosate and pesticides, high fructose corn syrup, seed oils, inflammatory grains, and that's pretty much what they eat.
And then blue lights and
Yeah.
social media.
All the media,
Yeah.
all the social media, all the games and electronics, so they're constantly being exposed to that. And because of this madness, their brain's on fire, and we wonder why they act out, right? We learned that the brain fully develops at 25. So if we have our kids and they eat garbage and they're surrounded by garbage and their environment's garbage and their lifestyle's garbage, and we minimize brain development, once they turn 25, it's not going to develop anymore. And the research is showing that if we don't do anything about their brain development issues, and if we don't calm down brain inflammation in kids, then at 25, when their brain stops developing, it's way more likely for them to be incarcerated, have affairs, have severe addictions, and have all sorts of other problems on top of that. So now more than ever, we have this huge emphasis on helping our kids thrive and helping our kids know what's good for them, what's not good for them.
Yeah.
Like even my daughter, for example, she was 10 years old. She ends up having out of nowhere, she ends up having anxiety. And I'm like, what the heck? Like she wouldn't go to school. She wouldn't do certain things. I'm like, where the heck is that coming from? And she's a really confident girl, does gymnastics, does all sorts of stuff. And then about 2 weeks into her anxiety spill, she starts to have little tummy aches. I'm like, son of a gunner. So I immediately test for celiac disease and a gluten intolerance. And lo and behold, full-fledged
She's celiac.
gluten intolerance. She's not celiac yet. We caught it early enough. But a full-fledged gluten intolerance, we get her off gluten, get her off dairy, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, gone. No anxiety.
Back to normal.
All of a sudden, her body starts to thrive. She starts getting stronger in gymnastics. She starts developing way better than she was the last 5 years. And we just didn't see the signs and symptoms up until she started getting anxiety. So you think about this, though, with a lot of our children, lots of children are suffering with this, and they're not getting the help that they need.
Right. So if I'm a mom and I'm listening, what I don't want any of you guys to feel like is you're failing, number one. So number two, just make one small change for your kids, like throw in a vegetable, throw in a fruit. If you're the cereal, pancake, yogurt, processed mom, don't try to change everything at once because it'll drive you crazy.
Yeah,
I think.
you'll go into a full-fledged panic attack for sure.
So let's all just take a deep breath and let's just think of small changes that you can start. I think for me, actually, I was a little depressed when I started the anti-inflammatory diet because you change everything and you go to the store and you're like, I can't eat anything. And what we don't want is moms saying that to their kids right now.
Yeah.
Just what's one thing you can cut out this week and one thing good you can add in, and then just take it slow like that. And if your kid's only 6, look, you have 19 years to fix it. So you're good. And kids are resilient.
They really are.
Like you're saying 2 weeks for your daughter. If she was 30, that would be a way bigger mess.
No, you're 100% accurate. What we can change for adults, it might take 6 to 9 months. For kids, I kid you not, 30 days.
Yeah.
They are so much more resilient. So Yes.
They're meant to bounce.
Having said that, just the understanding of like there's simple swaps that you can make that can go a long way. It's like, so for example, like you said, fruit snacks.
Yeah.
Fruit snacks are crap. Like dyes that cause tons of problems. If you do the research, you open up your fruit snack ingredient list and you go through those ingredients and actually research that, you'll be like, mother.
I actually feel bad for everyone listening because once I started looking at ingredients, I could never sleep again. So just know that once you start looking into it, it's not fun, but you just get rid of a ton of stuff.
Well, and another thing too, though, like let's just say, hey, this week I'm going to switch out our fruit snacks. Instead of that garbage, I'm going to go fully organic where like it's literally 2 ingredients.
Yeah.
Organic, pineapple and organic pepper.
Yeah.
Or they have this organic mangoes or whatever it may be. Like our kids use the organic fruit snacks now and they love them.
Yeah.
But that's one switch. I love how you said, like, there's the quote that we love, by small and simple things are great things brought to pass, right? Sometimes we can get overwhelmed with all these things that are really good and important to do. And it can literally minimize our progress because it just is too overwhelming.
Yeah.
Whereas I like to focus on just simply improvement. Like, look, you're not perfect. None of us are perfect. But what one change could you make this week that could make a big difference?
Yeah.
And
well, when you got in here, I was like, look at these 2 protein bars. Which one's better for? Well, I said, is this okay?
Yeah.
And I like those protein bars, but I'm going to stop eating the ones. And if you're listening and you're wondering, it's the barbell ones from Trader Joe's. They really are good. And you don't like protein bars in general. You say they're not good for me, but you're okay with, you said the good to go. G2G bar is better.
Better option.
Better option.
Good, better, best.
Yeah.
Right? Or for you, bad, good, better, best.
Yeah. And like really I need someone to create a delicious protein bar that I can eat on the go.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Carolyn, come on. What is your vision for Red River? What are you hoping?
That's a great question. We're opening up an office in Layton.
Oh, cool.
We're going to continue to expand and grow.
Yeah.
With me being gone, I was gone for 2 years. It's kind of like my family time. It's quite fascinating too. I think sometimes when we own businesses, like there's sometimes I work like 80 hours a week. Even when I'm not working, if I'm working from home, I'm on my phone a lot. I'm constantly doing emails and getting bombarded. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, do you like give your family equal time? I would have been like, yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
No questions about it.
Right.
But I left to Chicago every week. And so I would, with like the pandemic, I could fly home like Wednesday night, Thursday night, or Friday night, just depending on the week. But when I got home, I made a commitment to like be home. My phone's going to be put away in my closet, and I'm just going to like connect with the kids, connect with my wife, just connecting that at that level, right? And what I realized was that I connected more with my family being gone for 2 years than I did probably it's embarrassing, it's frustrating, than being here full time.
Oh, because you delineated the time between them.
Yep. When I was home, and I connected, and nothing got in the way. And my phone was put away. My mindset was fully on just helping the kids, helping my wife. And that process was awesome. But what that made me realize is, I have these business goals. I'm still going to dominate. Don't get me wrong. I'm still going to work really hard. Okay. I'm still going to do all that I can do to make sure that we're the best. There's no questions about it. But at the same time, too, I think a big goal for me right now is just continue to connect with the kids. They grow up so stinking fast.
I know.
Continue to develop a relationship with my wife and kind of understand how to communicate effectively, behave effectively, which marriage is, challenging in of itself.
Have you done the 8 Dates book?
No, I need to do it.
Have you heard of it?
I'm looking for anything to help.
It's the Gottman Institute, which they're like the best for couples therapy.
Yeah.
It's called The 8 Dates, and it's really good.
I love that.
So it's just a book that you both read, and then you plan 8 dates based on it. Yeah, it's really good.
I love that. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, love it.
So my goals are a little bit shifted.
Yeah.
In a sense that I love that aspect of it.
So you're not actually seeing patients. You have like 1 or 2, right?
I see our high-profile patients, and I see a lot of professional athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but your doctors that work.
Then my doctors manage, and they're so well trained. Like Dr. Stadler manages a lot of our offices. Dr. Swindlehurst in St. George manages offices. They're so well trained to help really, really sick people. So patients that I see are a little bit different, a little bit more unique, but they'll be high-profile patients or celebrities or professional athletes, and then I'll travel wherever they are, to help them.
Yeah. I did not, seeing Dr. Sadler instead of you, I was not upset. I felt like I got great care there. I thought he was awesome.
Our doctors are incredible, and usually we all kind of see the same patients. So at the same time, like, we're all working together for specific patients. If there's ever a problem or a concern, or if there's ever a hold up, like, we were going to review the patient's case together, talk about different options and strategies. We're all kind of a team there, which is great. So no one patient's really being seen by just one doctor. We're kind of overseeing things and monitoring things really closely.
How do you spell NADs? Is it NAD?
NAD?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
Love NAD.
Should I do it?
Absolutely. I heard you met my friend Megan.
I did.
IV gal.
Yeah.
Yeah, NAD is really, really cool. It's really powerful. It's really good for anti-aging. It's really good for liver function, metabolic function, which would be great for you. It helps stabilize glucose, helps the brain, helps so many different things. On top of NAD, I also do glutathione.
Okay.
Glutathione is our body's master antioxidant.
Yeah.
If there's anything, like, as we age, glutathione becomes depleted and our demands for glutathione increase. And so as we age, if there's anything that I could tell my one person to take, it would be glutathione. Glutathione helps with liver detoxification, phases 1 and 2 of biotransformation. It's a fancy term for detoxification. It helps with the intestinal lining. It helps with intestinal permeability. It helps with brain inflammation. It helps with the blood-brain barrier. It helps with adrenal function. Glutathione's like literally one of my favorite things.
Don't take it unless you get your blood done first, guys. Right? So do you like the IV delivery for NAD or pill?
I like the IV. So when I do the IV, I do NAD and glutathione both.
And have you done it personally?
All the time.
And what about the pressure that you feel?
When NAD goes in, you feel a little bit heavy chest, maybe like heavy breathing. Maybe it's harder to breathe. But for me, it's not that big of a deal.
You're okay.
Some people go through it and they're like having a panic attack.
Yeah, she's like, women actually, it's harder for them sometimes.
NAD has so much research when it comes to anti-aging. You can do it through an injection, but I feel like when I do the IV, it actually has a better therapeutic benefit.
Okay.
And so I do it through IV. I think you should do it.
I'm going to try it this Saturday. I'm nervous.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do it once a week for like 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
To see the results.
Okay.
But I could tell my testosterone levels increased, my gains at the gym improved, my stamina improved. I feel markedly better. It also helps with the cortisol awakening response. And so you'll notice that you'll get it done and you'll wake up like refreshed, ready to rock and roll a lot better than you would otherwise. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. Can I be upset about caffeine for a little bit?
Yeah.
I love caffeine. I love like a fun little drink. Stadler hates caffeine for me.
And here's why. Do you want me to explain why?
Yes, I do, but I still just love a caffeine.
Caffeine for some people is great.
Well, I have ADD.
Yeah.
And I prefer to drink caffeine as opposed to like taking Adderall.
Yeah. I would prefer you do caffeine versus Adderall as well.
I like the way it burns off my body.
You realize that Adderall is like a hydrogen away from being meth, right?
Yeah, no. And that's why sometimes I like Adderall, Dr. Ed. But as far as I feel like Adderall robs me of my creativity. I know that's like a weird way to say it, but it creates more brain fog for me than not, where I can manage my ADD with caffeine better than Adderall. Sometimes, like probably, I take Adderall as needed. So maybe 3 or 4 times a year, I will be like, okay, I gotta get my Adderall. Yeah. But on a day-to-day basis, I'd prefer caffeine. But I also know Stadler hates it for me. So.
Yeah. Like there's better ways to create energy and to minimize that just by stabilizing blood sugar levels, eating more frequently, not skipping meals.
You guys didn't see that, but I'm rolling my eyes right now.
not skipping meals is a really easy thing to do, so that if you can stabilize blood glucose, you're gonna have so much more energy. You're gonna be able to function a lot more effectively otherwise. However, though, there's a reason why for some people caffeine's good and some people caffeine's bad. If somebody had like a blood pressure of a dead person and they needed, better adrenal function, or they needed increased cortisol, caffeine could probably be a little bit better for them. For you, though, for years, you created this stress response where your adrenal glands were like full steam ahead. That stress hormone was firing like crazy.
Yeah.
Guess what caffeine does to that stress response?
Probably taps it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like a drug too, right? So it will minimize the way that your brain processes and the way that your brain gates information. I mean, caffeine can be really hazardous if you're not careful. For me, I personally feel like when I do caffeine, like
caffeine,
when I grab my Monster or whatever it is,
you do not drink a Monster.
When I
tell the truth, you're not drinking Monsters.
I drink Monsters every now and then in my olden days.
But not recently.
They're so bad for you.
They're so bad for you. I like matcha. I like it. I feel like it lasts a long time in my system. Yeah. It's not like a quick caffeine.
Maybe it absorbs slower and all that stuff. Yeah. But caffeine can minimize the way that our brain gates and processes information. And so it can be, for a lot of times it can be hazardous or problematic.
Okay, so when you drink your Monster, you were going to say I interrupted you.
If I drink anything with increased caffeine, I get brain fog instantaneously. I played football in college, and that was back in the days when we could just light somebody up and not get in trouble for it. So we were constantly the way that we hit people was obviously a lot different. And I would stutter really frequently, and I would mix my words. So like if I was going to say like take a shower, I'd say shake a tower.
Oh, yeah.
My brain has literally been jacked up since then. As I do and implement these anti-inflammatory things and I improve brain function and brain firing and all that stuff, I'm markedly better. But like I wouldn't have been able to do a podcast like this historically just because of how bad my brain was.
What position did you play?
Safety. But when I drink caffeine, like instantaneously I go back to how I was when I was playing football. I stutter, I can't think properly. I'm not as happy. My mood's different. It's crazy. Yeah. I think caffeine plays a lot bigger role in people's health in a negative way than we realize.
Also, people are drinking so much of it now.
Tons.
Like these pre-workouts have 300 milligrams in them.
Yeah, and they're typically filled with synthetic dyes and synthetic ingredients and sucralose, which we talked about earlier, which is basically just like drinking chlorine for your intestinal tract. So all like the healthy gut microbiome, if there's one really positive way we could destroy that, we would have them drink pre-workout with sucralose.
Monster. There you go.
Or Monster. Any artificial sweetener. It destroys that gut microbiome, and then that can induce food intolerances and create a lot of different problems on top of that too.
I just hate the idea of my life without a nice drink every now and then.
Look. Here's the beautiful thing is you're the expert in your own health.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you understand things way better than you ever did before.
Yeah, sure.
And so you kind of know your tolerance. You know what you can get away with. Have a drink. I'm not too worried about that, but just know how to recover fast if you end up having problems.
Yeah.
And moderation in all things is great, right?
Yeah,
unless you have an autoimmune disease.
Yeah, I don't. Just mental illness. What is one lesson that you learned early on in your business that you feel like is still true today?
That's a great question. We talked about the need to improve and making sure that we're always innovating, making sure that we're always progressing, making sure that we're not staying stagnant. That's obviously a really powerful one. I think creating that certainty and that drive and that confidence to move forward. And, when you feel confident that you have the best product, or you feel confident that you have the best business or the best innovative technologies, whatever it may be, like there's a power that goes with that, right? If we start to allow self-doubt and insecurities to kind of creep in, or fear, that can really minimize our progression from a business standpoint. Obviously for me too, I do give credit to God 100% in a sense that like I fully understand, and my wife will laugh about this, but I feel like I'm incapable of really doing anything on my own.
Mm.
At and at a very young age, I've learned like, geez, when I'm just trying to do my best, I'm not perfect. I fail miserably in a lot of different areas, but like when I try to develop a relationship with God, and this could, whether you're a Christian, Jew, Muslim, whatever it may be.
Yeah, whether you call it God or the universe or whatever. Yeah.
There's a higher power that I have felt in my life lead me and guide me and help me make decisions that I am incapable of making myself.
Mm.
And so I think by myself, I feel like I'm incapable to pretty much do nothing.
Yeah.
I'm incapable of not accomplishing anything really. But with God, I feel like I can do all things. I feel like whatever lays ahead, whatever I'm asked to do or whatever I'm called to do, I feel like I can do it and I can dominate because I got God.
Mm. I love that. What is like a piece of advice you would give like someone starting out in functional medicine or just starting out?
I think that's, the improvement, being patient with yourself, giving yourself grace, continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to educate yourself. That's kind of the scary thing when it comes to business. Like when you're running your own business, it's kind of scary because if you don't innovate, you don't continue to grow, it could fail really quickly, right? The way we used to market is totally different than the way we market now. Every office is different.
Yeah.
We would go into a market and I would think that, I can just market how I usually do, fail completely. And I'd have to spend hours and hours and hours trying to figure out how to market for that specific population there, right? So continue to stay on top of that curve is going to be important, and doing the best that you can to just keep pushing, keep grinding, keep being certain, keep being confident with who you are and with your product. It's always going to work out. We have a massive potential. We have a massive, we all have a lot of talents and gifts that we've been given, and learning how to unleash that is cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, where like you get to a certain point to where like I can't even fathom. I remember like being young and I was thinking like, I couldn't even like, my mind couldn't even grasp me being in a certain area, you know, or like achieving a certain goal. Like my mind just couldn't grasp that. And then once you push forward and you keep making it happen, and then you reach that goal, it's just kind of explodes a whole new realm of opportunities and things out there, right?
Yeah, it's like you think sometimes the climb is it, and sometimes it's the journey, or it's a destination where you get there and you're like, oh, this is the lesson, and then sometimes lessons in the climb. And I feel like it goes back and forth for me, where like learning the process is where I'm learning all the lessons, but then sometimes actually arriving is where I learn the lessons that I need to learn.
I think if I could help share any advice, it would be to enjoy the climb.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for so long I was in the mode of just grinding, doing all that I could to help patients and to grow the business or do whatever it may be, that I didn't enjoy that experience. And time goes by so fast. Yeah. There's so many life lessons that we can learn just by that climb. And I think perspective is really important too. Like if there's anything that I could share, I think perspective could be a really important concept. Perspective can be our greatest form of destruction or our greatest form of happiness and joy and growth. And it has nothing to do with anything but our mindset. Yeah. Like just a simple switch that can change whether, so like if I had a different perspective and I could enjoy the moment better during that climb, that would be really important. I love perspective though. Like my sister died on 2 Mother's Day ago, and she was like a second mom to me. But when she died, man, my world just like shattered. It was really hard and challenging for me. I remember like crying for like 2 days straight. I flew to Arizona immediately. But that was really, really, really hard and challenging. And then about a year later, I just wouldn't think about her because every time I thought about her, it would just cause pain. I was like frustrated that I didn't have that time with her, or frustrated that that time was lost with her, right? And then I had this impression that he essentially said, like, stop it. Like, that's not fair for you, and it's not fair for her. And so literally that same day, I just had a change in perspective where if rather than having pain that you don't have time with her, why don't you start to develop gratitude for the time that you had with her? And just that one switch made a huge, huge difference, for me personally. But that can happen with really anything. Like even as you're growing a business, as you have trials and challenges that come up, you can have like a woe was me or a perspective that is disgruntled or angry or whatever that may be. And that's going to lead you to fail eventually. Like that perspective is going to lead you to, and it's going to cause you to be miserable. And even if it doesn't, you'll be miserable, right? Versus if you have that perspective where, you know what, this is a challenge, this is a trial that I'm faced with. I'm going to learn how I can grow best. I'm going to learn how I can adapt. And I'm going to learn how this is going to make me better.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to take this challenge or trial full on, and that can make a huge difference. But all that literally changes is not your circumstance. It's not your challenge. It's not your trial. It's literally just your perspective. And so
I always call mine my shitty first draft because my first inclination is like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And I let myself feel it.
Yeah.
And I need to get through that.
I think it's important to feel it, right?
And then it's like, okay, but then what?
Yeah.
Like this isn't going to be, I'm not going to sit here and wallow forever, right? I'm going to figure it out. And I love actually looking back at my life with rose-colored glasses and just being grateful for everything I've gone through. Even like I've been through some hard stuff.
Yeah.
And just being grateful that it all happened and almost romanticizing it a little bit instead of just really feeling bad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life can be so rich with like lessons and gratitude and so many amazing, beautiful things for sure. I wish I could have had a different perspective my first 10 years in business. I really do.
That's good. That's good. Okay, we're going to jump into some rapid fire questions. What is something you wish all your patients did besides listen to you?
I wish they would not drink caffeine. No,
there
I'm
we go.
Teasing. I think you said it best, where I want my patients to continue to make the simple changes. Don't be overwhelmed, but continue to make the simple changes to better your quality of life. I want them to continue to learn, right?
Okay, what's one change someone can make today if they're listening?
From a dietary perspective?
Because RedRiver Health it's expensive. Let's just put that out there. It is expensive, but it's an investment in your future and in your health.
But is it really expensive?
I've told it to people before, and they've been a little bit. I think where you get to the point where you don't let it get to the point where you have to do it. I think it is. I run 2-3 very expensive businesses. I'm proudly premium and I don't shy away from that. My moccasins are $60. They're expensive. The diaper bags are expensive. My mastermind is $10,000. It's expensive. And what I offer is worth, it's quality. And so I'm okay with it being premium.
Yeah. I don't feel like our program is expensive or to see us as expensive. And here's why.
I feel like it's premium.
It is premium.
Yeah.
We've never raised our prices in 12 years.
Time to raise your prices.
It's time to raise our prices.
Yeah. You guys get into RedRiver Health before they raise their prices. This is Josh telling us he's raising his prices.
But what I mean by this, though, is you'll have someone spend $8,000 on a breast augmentation.
Yeah.
A 1-day procedure.
Yeah.
We're seeing patients 30 times over the course of 9 months, and we're teaching them nobody else will teach them. They might spend $6,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, but they have a lifelong system in place that will help them forever.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy too is we don't mention this much, but we have a satisfaction guarantee as well. We're so confident that we're going to help you that if for some reason a patient isn't satisfied within the first 30 days, we refund their money back completely.
And you guys do payment plans. There's ways around it.
Like if someone's going to buy a $25,000 car, but they can't function properly and their health is terrible and their quality of life is terrible, Is $6,000 really that expensive?
It's not expensive. It's premium.
Love that.
But it's also an investment in your health.
I feel like for what we offer, and sometimes patients will pay $600 on medications a month. There's a patient that was going through cancer. She was spending $3,000 a month on a freaking cancer drug.
Yeah.
So it's like, from a health perspective, when you look at what they charge in hospitals, you look at what they charge for visits or random procedures, like, we're really inexpensive in my opinion.
I agree. Also, I would have paid, now having gone through it, even though I bitched and moaned the whole time, I would have paid double for what I got for it. Yeah, easily.
Yeah. Our goal, that's the thing too, though, is we're always going to work with patients. Like, for me, Red River really isn't a business. Like, I have like fun land development projects and fun things where I can negotiate, and I love that part.
Yeah, I love negotiating too. Yeah, it's so fun.
But Red River is more of just a service. Like, we love patients. We haven't raised our prices in 12 years. It's just, it is what it is. Like, we're here to help patients, and that's our main goal. The problem for me is that it just costs so dang much, because yes, our doctors might see a patient 20 to 30 times over the course of 9 months, but then they're also spending tons of time outside of your visit to analyze tests, customize treatment plans, and navigate through things like no doctor does, right?
Answer questions. Yeah.
So it's a lot of work. It's expensive for me to pay our doctors.
It's an expensive practice to run,
We really do need to raise our prices.
You really should. Okay, but what do you wish, what can someone do today? What do you think, like, one small change?
Our bodies aren't used to having high blood sugar issues and insulin surges. We're eating food that's consumed with so much high fructose corn syrup and other sweeteners that spike our insulin, and it creates so many problems. So if there's one change that someone can make, it would be to avoid foods that spike insulin. Obviously, high fructose corn syrup, sodas,
gas station candy,
inflammatory processed grains, those spike glucose as well.
Do you know what I was shocked by? Grapes.
Yeah, it's different for everyone too.
Grapes actually, for me, spike my blood sugar.
It's different for everyone, but just minimizing.
So just start with like high fructose corn syrup.
Don't eat things that will spike glucose.
Yeah.
And that one change could be life-saving for you.
Also, do you feel like most people know when their glucose has been spiked?
I don't necessarily think so.
No.
I have a continuous glucose monitor.
You have
on
a monitor
right now.
on? Yeah, there's a girl at Fresh Pick that does well. I think for me, what I notice, and it's different in everyone, extreme irritability right away. Like as soon as my glucose is spiked, I notice irritability, a headache that starts like behind my eyes, and then my nose gets stuffy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's great that you're sensitive enough to know that, right? That's awesome.
But irritability, I think, is across the board, right?
For sure. The biggest thing is that now America's blood sugar levels are a roller coaster. They're not always high. They're not always low. They're literally up and down all over the place, and it's creating a ton of problems and issues.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
Okay, so stop with fruit snacks, guys.
Just literally just minimize your sugar content, and you're going to be killing it.
Yeah, okay.
Do healthy carbs, like vegetables, fruits, those types of snacks. Replace your healthy carbs with just crap.
Sprouts. Sprouts are so good for you.
Sprouts are really good.
Yeah. And they're so easy to grow. I love growing sprouts. Those are the one plant I don't kill.
We're terrible at plants too. We're horrible plant growers.
My husband's really good at it. He has a good garden. He's got a greenhouse. He's starting all of his stuff. But for me personally, no, I can't keep
My wife and
alive.
if we want plants to die, you just bring them into the Red household.
Okay,
They
so
will
you
die.
guys are not going to do well in an apocalyptic situation.
I have
growing.
eggs. I have eggs. We have chickens in the backyard. I have not touched them one time. Our kids have literally just dominated that process.
Okay.
So they get the eggs. They take care of them.
Okay, which of your kids could be good at growing? We need to assign. You have 5.
We have a lot of our kids, like, they cook their own food. They cook us meals. They cook breakfast. They go out. They're really capable of doing lots of stuff.
Yeah. So one of them has to be a grower.
We raised them. They're going to grow.
Yeah.
They'll grow for us.
Yeah. They'll figure it out.
Yep.
Do you watch shows? Do you like any TV shows? You into anything?
My grandparents owned a movie theater growing up, so we literally watched movies all the time. I love shows, love cinema, love movies. It's like my happy place.
Is there any good shows you've watched lately?
I watched, what is it? What show did I watch?
I don't know, Josh.
We watched lots of. We're gonna have to edit that out for sure.
He wants to take it. Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso's coming out.
What's the?
Who's in it? Have you had sugar today? Is that what's happening right now?
I think so. I think I had caffeine. Outer Banks. Okay, ask the question again.
Okay, you like Outer Banks?
Ask the question again.
Okay, what shows have you been into?
We've recently been watching Outer Banks on VidAngel, and we freaking love it.
My husband calls it the show that with too many plot holes.
There are so many plot holes. With my ADD, it's fantastic because it just goes through everything about it. I love it. But I love like the adventure, the hunt. Like Indiana Jones is one of my favorite movies.
Okay, it's like the treasure hunting. You're into it.
I love that stuff for some reason.
So you don't mind the plot holes?
I'm going to be an archaeologist soon. I think that's going to be my next venture, and I'm just going to search for things.
Okay.
And I hope that it's as ecstatic as Outer Banks is.
Yeah, we're looking for that. Okay.
Yeah. My wife hates that, by the way. Like any show that like induces anxiety or like stress, she's like, why would I want to watch that?
I can't watch it.
So,
Have you been watching that new zombie show? My husband loves it. What is it?
Just barely. Where they actually turn in, they have the fungi infect them.
Yeah. Yeah, they shouldn't be eating that.
The Last of Us.
Glucose, yeah.
The Last of Us.
Yeah, my kids and my husband are watching that together.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
I can't. I just don't watch them. Okay, last question. What legacy are you trying to build?
That's a great question. I think for me, again, business-wise, it's great. I love building Red River and making what it is. It's literally probably the largest autoimmune clinic in the United States right now. We see 200 to 300 patients a day. It's awesome. We change lives every day. There's nothing better than that. But that stuff comes and goes swiftly. Like money comes and goes swiftly, right? Creating relationships, serving others, loving others, leading others, helping them grow, helping them learn how to take care of themselves. Like that's gold. That lasts forever, right? And so for me, I want a legacy where people look at me and they want to be better. They want to be better humans. They want to serve better. They want to love others better, right? If I can have that legacy, that would be awesome. Because that's long term. Money comes and goes and really is temporal. It doesn't increase our happiness. It's great.
Yeah, it's fun.
But it doesn't increase our happiness.
Yeah.
There's a deeper meaning to life. And I think if I could help inspire others and help lead others and help others be better and serve better and love better, that would be my legacy that I'd want.
Love it. Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming on. This was so fun.
I loved it. This was fantastic. It was unexpected. I didn't realize, I've never been interviewed by, well, I guess I have. I have been interviewed by my patients, but not to like this format. I didn't know what to expect coming into this. This is great.
Thanks for trusting me.
Good job.
Thanks.